My profession is I'm an accountant. I currently work as an internal auditor, but I've been involved with the fire service as a volunteer in Comac for the past 17 years. And subsequent to 9/11, I've obtained my EMT certification. I had just gotten off the subway train, and there were the stairs that would go up to the street level, and the first plane had just hit when I was on the subway platform area. And I can remember the shock wave of the first plane, all the people that were actually on the stairs getting blown down the flight of stairs. And first, I mean, the sound was incredible. Even that, underground, it was extremely loud. So at first I thought, maybe it was like a car bomb or something like that. And then I was like, I have to get to the street and see what's going on. A lot of people were just looking up, trying to make sense out of what happened, because these people had seen the plane. At this point, I still didn't know that it was a plane. I just could tell that it was an explosion, and then I heard people talking that a plane hit. So I checked in with my office. I said, I'm fine. I dropped off my stuff, but I said to them, I'm gonna go across the street to the firehouse on Liberty Street, which was the southern street of the World Trade Center complex. The guys at that firehouse were out at another call. They were at a gas leak at the time. But the captain of the truck company happened to be in quarters. So I introduced myself, I identified myself, showed him my badge, and said, I am a fireman. If you can use me, great. If not, I'll get out of your way. And he just looked at me and said, you're all I have. So you're in charge of triage. I can remember the second plane, you could hear the second plane then fly right over the firehouse and hit the second tower. There were a lot of civilians that were outside the front of the firehouse, okay, and they basically were my eyes outside, because I'd hear them start screaming. I'm like, all right, what's going on? What's going on? And they're like, people are jumping. And I didn't understand it. And then I went as I started working my way towards the front, I realized he was talking about people jumping out of the towers. And I was like, you know what? I don't need to see it. And when they land, there's nothing I'm gonna be able to do for them anyway. So I just focused on what I could do. When the guys with the ambulance showed up, the captain at this point was putting together a team to go across the street. And I said to him, you're putting a search team together. I said, I'm a truckie in the fire department. That means search is your bread and butter, and that's more, forcible entry. But I said to him, you're putting a search team together. I can be a lot of value to that. Do you want me to switch over? He was like, no, keep doing what you're doing. And it turned out to be a good thing for me, because I guess about 10 minutes later, I watched these 8 guys, maybe even less than 10 minutes, these 8 guys went across the street, and the civilians out front started screaming again. And I was like, what's the matter? They go, it's coming down. I go, what's coming down the plane? And they were like, no, the tower. So the tower that they were going into is where they got, they ended up getting killed. One of the jet engines actually came into the firehouse, and it destroyed the ambulance that we had. So if we had put the ambulance in the other bay, it would have, killed us. If you were outside the firehouse, okay, you would have seen cars upside down and toppled on top of each other. And it just looked like a child had played with Matchbox cars, where they may have stacked them up and knocked the pile over, and just to see what would happen. That's what it looked like, except they were like real full-size cars. There were several walking wounded or other civilians who had been carried in by coworkers or strangers. And it just became a big repository for injured people of all different types of injuries. One man was a broken pelvis. Another was a woman who had been on fire. I just remember she was Japanese, and she really didn't speak a lot of English. I love to travel, okay, and I did spend some time in Japan. So, you travel, you try and pick up some words here and there. And I remember saying a couple things to her in Japanese, and she smiled, and that made her feel a little more comfortable. Okay, so she knew I wasn't trying to hurt her or anything. We made the decision we had to cut her wedding ring off. And so he gave me a ring cutter, because the blistering on her was very, very bad. So I remember cutting her ring off and then looking for a packet or something that I can put the pieces in to give back to her, so at least she'd have, the the pieces, so maybe we should get it fixed afterwards. A decision was made, I guess from dispatch, to go to 2 Rector Street, okay, and we were assigned that building to start evacuating that building. Our assignment was to get these people down to the Staten Island ferry area where they were lining up buses, and they were going to be taking these people to Queens. We had the man with the broken pelvis, okay? He had a suitcase with him, a briefcase. We had this man, one on each of our shoulders, okay? And so he was in the middle, kind of like helping a football player off the field, and his bag. And he wouldn't let go of the bag. And we were trying to carry him, and we're getting hit in the head with this bag that's really heavy. So we said to him, we got to leave the bag. He's like, no, I can't. And what's worth noting, he's from China. And we said, please, it's heavy and it hurts when we get hit in the head with it. Because I cannot leave the bag. And we finally said to him, what's in the bag that you can't leave? And it was $1 million in cash. So, okay, he had just gotten a loan from the Chinese government, and then the government made a loan to him in cash. So we're like, okay, we're not leaving the bag. We get down to the Staten Island ferry, and there was a police officer there coordinating everything. And I said to him, I got 125 people. You give me the buses, they'll be out of your way. And he thought that was great. They pulled up a few buses, we loaded people up, and they went to Queens. The only problem was, when we got to the end of the line, both Brian's and Fu were missing. And I said, okay, it's easy enough to get back to the building where we just started from. Let me backtrack and see what I can find, see what happened. Couldn't find them. And during that process, I ended up running into guys from the fire marshal's office. And I said to those guys, I was over at 10 House. We cleared it. And now I'm by myself. Do you mind if I stay with you guys? And they're like, no, you're more than welcome to be with us. So we ended up setting up a command post by Battery Park. Tower 7 came down, and people heard the rumbling, and we know what that sound was like because we've been through it a couple times already. And everybody started running except for some of us. And we all kind of looked at each other and said, well, what are you running for? It's only 50 stories. That's how messed up it was. We used to big. We used to 100 stories coming down. 50 stories, this is nothing. This is minor league at this point. So that's kind of how twisted the day was. Oddly enough, a fishing boat showed up. And the captain of the fishing boat, he said, where do you need to go? And I said, I need to get to Jersey. He goes, hop on. And he took me in his boat. We went over to New Jersey. And now I'm in Jersey. I have to see how I can find my friend. I was able to get a shift once a week, and I would work in the city for my accounting job from, my regular day, and then the shift at the church was basically from 8 in the evening to 8 in the morning. But I would go in early. I'd finish up at work, my job at 5, be across to the cathedral by 5:15, already changed and working.
And what were you doing there?
A lot of food prep, whatever had to be done. One thing that was interesting was about a year after 9/11, there was an article in a Chinese newspaper all about Fu. One of my colleagues came into my office, and she was Chinese, and she read the Chinese paper and said, "You're looking for Fu?" I go, "Yeah, how did you know?" She showed me the Chinese paper, which didn't do me any good because it's all in Chinese, and said, "Well, he's looking for you." We were able to get the phone number to the newspaper. We tracked down the reporter, and we were able to put together a kind of like a reunion. I ran into Fu in the parking lot at the firehouse. We got there at the same time, and he recognized me right away. And he was walking with his cane because, like I said, he had a broken pelvis. His wife, I remember at one point, came up to me, and she knew what everything was like through what he had told her. And there were a couple times I said to Fu, I said, "I'm not leaving you. I'm just trying to figure out a place where I can get you to that's safe. So don't worry, I'm not leaving you. I'll be back. She had said to me if I had decided to leave him behind, she would have understood. And for me to be able to see him with his wife and daughter as a complete family is what made a lot of what we went through that day worthwhile. I had lost a lot of friends there. Okay, a lot of my friends, being in the fire service, some of the guys who you volunteer with are also friends, or also full time. But when you go into the firehouse and you see it looked like a telephone book. I go, what's this? And they go, that's the kill list. All the guys, and what happened to them. So then I'm trying to figure out, all the memorial services and the funerals and stuff like that. And so I remember one day I had 4, and made it to the first one. First one ran late, so I missed the second one. Made it to the third one. Third one ran late. Didn't make it to the fourth one. You did the best you could. I mean, we spent so much time in our dress uniforms, going from service to service. They could kind of stand up by themselves.